Does this guy look familiar? Donald Trump made a big splash at the CPAC convention, but then again, the Donald could make waves in a puddle, couldn't he? Donald Trump with us by phone. Mr. Trump, so glad you could join us this afternoon. Respond to this first, if you would. Listen to this piece of tape, and then we'll chat about it.
I don't know whether he has earned the, the right to criticize somebody for not winning an election when I don't know how many elections he's won so far himself.
Mr. Trump, that was Ron Paul talking about you. So who is the more electable presidential candidate, you or Ron Paul?
Well, I've never run in an election, but I have employed thousands and thousands of people. I've made billions of dollars, which if I ever decided to run, which is a possibility, frankly, I would make lots of money for the American people. It's, one of those things. I was making a speech. I was getting these tremendous applause because I was talking about China ripping us off and OPEC ripping us off and lots of other people. Everybody likes to rip off the United States because we don't have leadership that sees that. And this guy kept heckling me, vote for Ron Paul for president. And I never mentioned Ron Paul's name, but then I did say he's unelectable. He is unelectable, and I think he's a great guy. I think he's a nice guy. I like him a lot. I agree with some of his views. I'm more conservative than he is probably, but I agree with some of his views. But this was a response, my response, which I guess was carried all over the world, unfortunately for him. But my response was just that, he has zero chance of being elected.
Well, you say that if you run and win, obviously you think you're electable. So you also say that you would return respect to the U.S. Where is the U.S. not respected, and how would you return respect?
Well, the United States is not respected. We're not respected for our smarts. We're not respected for virtually anything anymore. I mean, those days are gone. You look at what's happening in China. We're rebuilding China with our money, with all the jobs that we're producing. The jobs that we're producing are being produced in China. We have an effective rate of unemployment of probably 19%, and it could be higher than that. They say 9%, but it's not 9%. It's much closer to 20%. And you look at China, they're up 36% from last year. They're going through the roof. And what they're doing is they're making all of our products. We don't make products anymore. You look at what's happening with OPEC, how they're ripping us off with the oil prices. These 12 guys sit around a table, and they set the price of oil. We're going to be at $100 a barrel soon. And after that, we're going to be at 150 and 200. And we have nobody to protect us and say, fellas, you better not do it. So, again, I like Ron Paul, and he's right. I've never been elected because I've never run an election. And maybe I wouldn't do well, and maybe I would. But I can tell you one thing. If I ever did get elected, this country would be respected again.
Let's talk about the deficit. As it's structured, 66% of this thing is locked in, either interest on the debt or mandatory benefits such as Medicare. So spending cuts can actually only come from about 1/3 of the federal deficit, and a big part of that is the military. So how would Donald Trump shrink the federal deficit?
Well, for one thing, I'm a big fan of the military. I'm a very hawkish person because I see what's going on in the world, and I see these deals being made with Russia where they're telling us what to make. This is the first time in the history of the country where another nation is telling us how many missiles we can have and what to do with respect to nuclear and all of the other things that other countries are trying to develop hand over fist. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I was just, so do you have an idea? And we saw the president come out.
Yes, well, I think tremendous amounts, and I've never heard it said, but I think hundreds of billions of dollars of money, and let's call it tax money, could come from other countries when we stop them from ripping us off, or by, as an example, we're protecting South Korea from North Korea. Why aren't they paying for it? South Korea makes a fortune. If they were a company, their stock would be very high. And they make a fortune largely because of us. Why are we protecting? When bombs were thrown at them a month ago by North Korea, we send the George Washington aircraft carrier, one of the great ships of the world, and a fleet of destroyers over to North Korea. Why aren't they paying for this protection? I don't mind. We'll protect them. Pay for the protection. So when you look at 100 other items just like this, hundreds of billions of dollars could come in. So you wouldn't have to play around with Medicaid and Medicare and things that really are dear to people's heart.
Listen, I know that you're an excellent businessman, so if you can, just stick around with us for just 2 minutes. We're going to take a quick break, and then I want to talk to you about how you would run the government. So we'll be right back.
Got to have
Welcome back, everyone. It's 10 minutes before the hour. We are on the phone with Donald Trump, talking politics, talking a possible presidential run. We're looking at video of you, Mr. Trump, from CPAC over the weekend. I want to ask you, if you do run, do you subscribe to the notion that the government can and should be run like a business?
Well, it certainly should, but a business with heart, because I'm a big believer in heart. Some people have real problems, and they should be helped, and I love helping people. But it should be done responsibly, and we should run the country responsibly. I will tell you that, you asked me before what would be the first thing I do. One of the very early things I do is tax Chinese products, because what they've done is manipulated their currency so that when I build a building, so many of my products, unfortunately, are ordered from China, because our companies can't compete fairly because of the fact that their currency has been manipulated so low. By taxing their number one, would take in a lot of money, but I would put a 25% tax on Chinese products unless they came to the table and started treating us with respect and treating us fairly, in which case I wouldn't need the tax. By the way, as soon as I did that, they would come to the table and they would make a deal that would be very, very good for this country. But two things would take place. Number one, would start making products, because that would take over for the unfair manipulation of the currency. And number two, because of that, we'd start creating jobs in this country. Ben Bernanke said a couple of weeks ago that it's going to be 5 years before we start getting good job growth. Well, I don't think it's going to ever happen, because by that time, China, India, other countries will have all of the jobs. We won't need any jobs.
Well, so you have all these ideas and things that you want to do for when you're president. You've been teasing about running for president. Of course, there's this website, shouldtrump.com, people weighing in on whether or not you should run. So tell us, when do you plan to decide, or are you here to break some news today?
Well, I'd love to give you some great news, but frankly, we need something. This country needs something quickly. And I will decide to run one way or the other by June.
All right. You heard it here, by June. We hope you'll come back and talk to us about it when you do decide to run.
Okay. It's been a great honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Donald Trump on the phone with us this afternoon.